to Print Your Games, the podcast for 3D printing enthusiasts, all of us gamers who make our own toys. I'm Jefferson J. Thacker, also known as Perram, and I'm joined by
Kristen Sowards, also known as Lost Spheres.
Kristen. What have you been into lately?
I randomly found some STLs while I was on drive-through looking at their new releases.
Uh-huh.
I just do that. I was looking for PDF stuff and new, PF1 or 5e content or whatever, just kind of like
Right.
browsing through there. And I see this weird hard suit game, which is actually a setting for, I guess, the index card role-playing game from Runehammer. And I've never
Okay.
actually played that. But I saw these little chonky mechs or golems, and you can't quite see from our little graphic. But if you're listening, these are like big, like almost imagine like a kind of remind me of Big Daddy, right, from BioShock a little bit, but
Okay.
they're a little more slick. The main one that is in the image that we're showing here has kind of like filigree, and it kind of has like this maybe steampunk, but it might also be sci-fi. Just a really good usable mini, and its morphology is almost, I don't want to say chibi, but it's kind of verging on it. It's got a
Right.
very large kind of tank body. When I say tank, I don't mean just tank. It is definitely a tanky thing, but it's also like a swollen, like it could be containing like a person inside it or a little furry cute animal, I don't know. And it's got like big
Yeah.
huge punching arms and tiny legs.
It's like a
um,
runed punk mech if there was like a uh cryo chamber that had arms and legs.
I think that's a great one. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, James says they remind him of the guys at the beginning of the Fifth Element. I think that is true. And then there
Right.
are other body styles. One of them that's also really cool is kind of like a little monster looking thing that's kind of like it
Mhm.
swallowed its pilot maybe. There's known
Right.
that like the pilot would be in crystal. Anyway, they're just really neat, very unusual, and I had absolutely no project in mind for them. I just thought they were unusual and thought, hey, maybe I should make those. So I printed those up, but then I had to assemble them, and I think we'll be getting
Ah, yes, and that is one of the reasons I asked the question is so
yes,
it comes in a
yes,
bunch of little kits and you can pose and assemble it however you want, right?
yeah. You get arm sets and leg sets, and everything's
Mhm.
pretty good scaling wise. I will give them compliments. Aside from their drilled arms, which I think are about 30% larger than everything else in the file pack for some reason. I don't know why.
Okay.
I don't like if I printed them at their actual size. I don't think they would have fit any of the body's little like arm nooks,
Hmm.
And they're just kind of your typical, kind of
Mhm.
beveled in little depression, just kind of rounded, and then the arms themselves have kind of like a little round bevel, and you just kind of match that up and glue it as best you
Cool.
can. If you're
Right.
me,
It reminds me of like some of the War Machine mechs back in the day with like ball and socket joints so that you could pose
oh yeah,
arms and
yeah, and
legs
a
and all
lot of
sorts of
modular kits even are that way
right.
now. When you get them, like even Artisan Guild kind of is that way.
My favorite thing to do with those was to pose like who pick whichever warcaster I was going to have leading my army, and
Mhm.
whoever their main mech was to pose it identically in the pose that the warcaster was
Like
posed
it was
in.
being puppeted by the
Yeah,
Warcaster. I like that.
exactly.
It's very
Yeah,
cool.
it is a fun way to play. Man, I miss War Machine, but I kind of really don't. I really
Why
wish
don't you?
in the later half of that game's life, it kind of took a nosedive in for various reasons.
Oh,
It's
okay.
unfortunate. Also, that community got super competitive in ways that I'm not,
It's
and
huge
good
here.
for them. Good
It,
for them.
yeah. Yeah, like one of the stores that were like Demolition Games here is just
Hmm.
huge, even still into it. And it became like
Wow, really?
primarily their game for quite some
Mhm.
time.
Like
Yeah.
here, you couldn't even give the stuff away anymore.
Oh, interesting. Interesting. So when you say
Yeah.
nosedive, like its popularity died off?
Like no, like pennies on the dollar discount bin for all of it here.
Wow, you should hook me up because if I can't find good
Like
proxies
if
anyway.
you want to be hooked up, I've got 3 armies that you're welcome to.
The reason why I say this is I don't know if you know, but Privateer
Hmm.
Press just did a 5e campaign setting with all those minis
Ooh.
as monsters.
Ooh. I even have a few of the big giant jacks, like the 7-inch tall ones.
Like do you have the big like Ouroboros, like the big?
Yep.
Yeah, cool.
Hmm.
Yeah, those things are neat. But yeah, there's a campaign setting for that, and they're actually just doing their third Kickstarter for it right now. But they've had 2 come out already.
And I love modular minis, like in because I love posing and customizing my stuff. And I've said many times on the show that digital kit bashing is one of my favorite parts of this hobby. In modular kits give you all this freedom, like you can swap heads. And when you buy a bunch of kits from like even from different, completely different vendors, then you just are multiplying and multiplying your options. It's like you have your own folders filled with your own personal, much higher quality Hero Forge.
Yeah. And then there's people
But
like
that's
me
not how
that
you
are
did
like,
it, did you?
no, I printed it normal and was trying to
Right.
glue it. And I said trying because, like, if you
Mhm.
look at this guy, and for anybody who's listening, I have an arm and a leg on him out of his.
Oh, that leg wiggled.
Yeah, I see. So it's not that good. And this is 26 minutes before we started the show. I started trying to put these on and letting them dry with
Mhm.
super glue.
Right.
And as you can see, I'm halfway done, kind of.
Right. And it's not your fault, Kristen. And certain types of resins are worse than this as other, but a lot of resin sometimes just does not like to play well with glues at
It's
all.
true. It's
Yeah,
true. And
and
most
super
of the
glue
glues
especially.
that work well for me are exceptionally slow curing. And I should have brought
Mhm.
some Zapagap, like some
Right.
accelerant here, but I didn't. So yeah,
That is the secret. You have to have accelerant.
my hope is that by the end of the episode, I'll have it. Gorilla Glue. That's good stuff.
This is my favorite to use for 3D printing. It is gel super glue from Gorilla Glue. It is unfortunately some of the most expensive super glue you can buy,
Yes.
and it
And
burned through this very fast.
oddly easier to find at like Home Depot and stuff than it is at like hobby stores. I go to hobby stores and all they have is like, this. Everybody's seen this. I'm gonna cover the name on it, but this like Insecure, and
Oh
it's
yeah, that's
branded. It gets like, I think.
you're talking about Bob Smith Industries (BSI).
Yeah,
This
I
is a
just know.
favorite for model makers. They love this stuff.
And yeah, and it's everywhere here, and everybody has a branded like their
Mhm.
store name on it
Mm.
version.
Mhm.
Like
Well,
that one
well, to be
does.
fair, brands of super glue rarely matter because it's all cyanoacrylate. It's just a
Yes,
very simple formula chemical that anybody can mix together.
I think Goobertown has a good video about that.
Mhm. Yeah, Goobertown is great for any chemical like questions. You can, in fact, we're going to be probably referencing one of Goob's videos very frequently in an upcoming episode that a user has requested about the safeties of 3D printing that we're going to
Okay,
have to cover. But
cool.
doing research for that, if you've got any info or requests or questions for the safety, get that in so that
Don't
while we're
get it in
putting
your
this episode,
eye,
don't get it
and
in your eye. Do
don't
not
get it
drink the
in your
forbidden milkshake.
mouth. Don't huff it.
Yeah.
Don't prime your minis in a small, unventilated area.
And
Just trying to think of things I've actually done. Let's see.
I've done it the way you're trying to do it too, where you just print a whole bunch of bits and then use it to assemble models. Like this is a whole lot of Ilhadil's high elf kit to make Shadow Warriors.
Yep.
And underneath that, more. I think this is some Dragon Shields. And I mix it together with like oath marks and real kits and stuff. And there's nothing wrong with doing it that way. And there's a lot of fun. Just like get some Zapagap to make your life infinitely easier. Resin doesn't like it. The other thing is like sanding the resin a little bit on the sides will help.
That
But
extra,
when the second
point.
you do that, you have to wear a respirator because sanding resin is a great way to get resin dust in the air. Please to God be wearing a respirator when you do that.
I'm sure I'll always do that.
You really should. Like
I
it
know.
is like a fast path to Cancer Town if you don't.
I've only dremeled the one once with that one on.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
I'm still alive.
Right. So what
I'm a cautionary tale, listeners. Do not do anything I say I've done. Don't do it.
So whether it's pre-assembling modular kits or completely customizing and kit bashing minis, my favorite thing to do is to do that before printing. I take my modular minis, open up Blender, I slap them all together, customize them up, and then I combine it all together, support the combined model, and print them whole. It saves me a ton of headache gluing. It is so much faster to do that in Blender and then print them than it is for me to sit there for half an hour trying to glue a golem together.
We're up to at least almost 40 minutes now. Me trying to glue.
Oh my gosh.
3.
Please to gosh, go get a Zapic app. Please go get it. Not during the episode, obviously.
Yes.
Yeah, but like I understand that can be intimidating because the second you open 3D software, it's like, whoa, what am I doing? Like as I said before and recommend on the show, I recommend Blender. Blender is a professional level software that is used by studios to make movies, and it's got all the controls. It is a very intimidating piece of software to open up and get lost in.
I like that word, intimidating, because it's so far that's exactly what it's been.
Some even easier softwares that you can use is Mesh Mixer. Mesh Mixer is a lot more simple, but still you should watch some quick tutorials on using it. Blender, there's lots of wonderful beginner tutorials on how to just basically manipulate stuff in Blender. You've really to customize your minis, you only need to know how to scale, rotate, and move objects, and to even if you want to get even deeper into like full-on digital kit bashing, like I want this dragon's arm on this giant robot mech because it's going to be giant robot mech with dragon arm. Like then all you need to know is the booleans. The boolean, just learn how to do booleans, which is basically you take a shape and use it to cut out another shape. I'll get into the details on that, but it is so much easier. Another piece of software you can use is Microsoft 3D Builder. It's a completely free piece of software that is a wonderful piece of kit for every 3D printer because 3D Builder has a repair function that works awesome. And sometimes I'll buy models or get models from a Patreon or something, and it will have holes in it and like not be a fully watertight mesh, or there'll be voids in the middle of it. And there'll be problems with the mesh. There's problems with the model, even when I get it from the artist. And 3D Builder can just fix that like nothing. Instant repair, done.
And it's pretty good. It doesn't like add any.
No, it's so much better than. Yeah, it doesn't do that nonsense. Like even Lachi, when it tries to auto repair, it's not great. Netfab Basic, installer available on GitHub, is from CCatlet. That will do it too. Netfab's great too. 3D Builder, if you've got Windows, is a little bit faster and more user friendly than Netfab Basic, but Netfab will totally do it. And if you're not running Windows, Netfab's kind of your only option.
Well, Netfab, does Netfab allow you to kit bash, or does it just do the repair function?
Netfab is mostly for repairing. It doesn't. It fixes meshes.
I just wanted to clear that up.
Saying 3D Builder can mess with the ZYX scaling. I haven't had that happen, but it wouldn't surprise me.
Interesting. Good to know. This is all stuff that it's all witchcraft to me right now. I'm your Padawan tonight.
Right. Yeah. So let's start talking about the basics of digital kit bashing, which is. The goal here is that ultimately you can basically use every model that you've ever gotten as just parts to customize every other model you want. And a lot of times when I'm buying kits or pledging into campaigns, that's kind of how I'm seeing them. It's like, I don't mind, like an artisan guilds are great for this because all their parts are interchangeable with each other. It's like, I don't care about frog folk, but those weird bases and those spears will be perfect for my orcs.
Yeah, the living armor stuff they had for those sea elves are perfectly cool for like biomancers or Simic stuff if you're doing a MTG inspired D&D game.
Yeah, and from a couple episodes back, I'm talking about like I want my sci-fi soldiers, but like I can't find the perfect sci-fi soldier kit. But you know what I can find? I can find heads I like, bodies I like, and guns I like, and then boom, I suddenly have the perfect sci-fi soldier for how I envisioned it or how I want it.
That's awesome.
Which I say this, and then Red Pilgrim just comes out of nowhere.
I was gonna say you also
amazing set. It was like, holy crap, just Red Pilgrim! What the heck?
Those just look like kind of space cops, and those look like just soldier dudes. And
the soldier dudes I like. They did a set of like not Cadians that kind of look like a mix between Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 if they were joined the Imperial Guard of Warhammer 40K,
right?
And like
so good.
Their Rhino has like a deuce and a half wheels, and that's awesome.
I thought, we'd probably be saving this from the shout outs, but since we're raving about them, their Eldar packs were insane.
Yeah. So yeah, big shout out to Red Pilgrim Miniatures. Also, their pledging is $5, and
$5,
it
and currently you can get some of their back stuff, so it's
yeah.
worth
So
every penny.
yeah, it's a wonderful pledge, and they keep doing some. I was a fan of them early. They were one of the few that they got some GW attention real early on.
Hmm.
Um, they had some Space Marines, not Space
Yeah,
Marines, that were a little flying a little too close to the sun.
sure.
Those aren't available anymore, but
I'll also give them kudos because they tend to do 2 releases a month, which is insane.
mhm, yeah,
Usually
I've been
one kind of
super happy with.
character, like high end model, and then a troop, but still, it's really
Yeah.
cool.
And high quality. They definitely are
Yeah,
sticking to their heroic style stuff because they know, like their models would blend in. They've got like, and they like to take. They do both like some of the more basic default looks, and they also do like some of the special looks. Like their main line is Desert Hawks, which is just like really desert and trench coats and goggle punk and desert punk style
yeah.
sci-fi soldiers and
Could
giant
use them in a
walker
lot of
mechs,
games.
and yeah. They perfect for Stargrave, perfect for Grimdark Future, perfect for 40k, perfect for Starfinder. Anywhere you need slightly futuristic looking sci-fi dudes, they've got them.
Yeah,
And
Janissary
also their kits are
vibes.
modular, which leads
Yep,
us back into
what we're talking
back
about
into the
here.
topic. All right. So you want to digitally assemble things. It really is as simple as what I like to do is I open up my editor. Like I said, Blender's my one of choice, but you can do this in Mesh Mixer or 3D Builder. And what I do is I just import all the parts that I possibly could want. If it's a modular set, I'll literally just import everything in the release into my scene all at once. And what will happen a lot of times is that the way they exported it, they'll already be in position for the default pose with everything joined up. And
That's
Artisan Guild's
cool.
great for that. Most other publishers are great for that. And then the extras will be like organized in groups arrayed around them and above them. So it's like it's just basically just like a tool rack that you just pull down your parts, and I'll just duplicate the parts and bodies and heads I want, and then move them off to the side and just start sticking them together.
Hmm.
And then you can select just the model that you've built with all the parts from either the set they came with or other sets that you've brought in to customize it. So I can just bring in heads, and then you can easily rescale the parts to match what you want. In fact, a hack I like to do to make sure that everything will connect is that if they have a situation where the chest piece itself is separate from the legs and arms and stuff, which is a very
Yeah,
common option,
very
I'll take that and make it 102% scale in place so that it
interesting.
gets a little bit bigger. And I know when you're combining parts digitally, you want to make sure that there is some overlap where the meshes intersect each other so that they will
Right.
actually print connected. I have had it before where I've gotten that a little too loose and I print it off and take it off the support, and the arm just falls right off because it wasn't close enough.
I have a couple questions. First
Mm-hmm.
off, is this one of the things you use your VR thing for?
No, no.
No. Okay. So just for sculpting, right?
Right. Yeah.
Okay. Second question is like, so when you're lining these up and you've done the upsizing and everything, is there a function when you have everything in place that like says make this all one mesh? Is there a thing that does
You
that?
can do that. You can do called remeshing or
Okay.
combining. It's actually better to do that in 3D Builder, in my opinion, because it's a little bit more clean. You can do
Okay.
it basically. You can export your combined object, and then you can remesh it or recombine it or repair it in 3D Builder, and then they'll just make it one solid object and not separate shells. That's what it's called, shells. When you have more than
Okay.
one part that's
But you make it
intersecting.
sound like that's not something you do very much.
No, I don't even bother with it
Okay.
because the default slicers for resin printing,
Hmm.
this I hear that with FDM printing that this can be a bit more of a problem because of how that maps the pathing of the
Hmm.
models. But for resin printing, overlapping and intersecting shells do not matter if you're using Chi2 Box or similar software to print, because it just prints the silhouette of what those things should be at that layer as one piece. It's not trying to do pathing. It doesn't care where the walls are.
So
It
here's a
just
question
this is the
about that then.
silhouette. Uh-huh.
If you've got your silhouette and everything,
Mm-hmm.
and say you're a 2-bit hack like me and you use auto supports, is that
Right.
going to cause problems with all those individual pieces? Is it going to try to do like auto supports through things into those pieces, or is it going to just know the silhouette's there and just do the auto
So
supports
auto
attached?
supports by default in Lachi. I'm going to say Lachi first because that's where I'm doing my auto supports. But Fresh is pretty good about this too. They usually will not do that. I have had that happen on occasion. Just keep an eye out for it because then you can just delete that support or move it, where it will go through the model instead of. But like auto supports are usually designed to not intersect with the model itself. That's kind of important, though. It will sometimes happen. When that happens, just give your model a spin when you see the supports to make sure that you don't have a shaft running straight through its arm. That's a bad thing.
Well, like when I do my clunky,
Mm-hmm.
low budget version of this, I do collision on the plate, and that definitely shoots auto
Oh.
supports
Mm-hmm.
through minis. And then I have to go through and try to
Mm-hmm.
tediously click them out. It's sounding like, both of these options are much slower than what you're doing.
If you do it and export it as an STL by itself, it shouldn't do that. If you do it in Blender, you do it in Mesh Mixer, and you support it as just one STL. And if you're having that problem, throw it in 3D Builder, repair it as a single mesh. It'll solve that problem, and you'll kick out one shell, one combined object with no intersections.
So are you saying like do that on like your normal print program and then save it and then like have I'm
Your
confused.
print program should not be involved until it's time to print the mini.
Okay.
Yeah.
So do it from like Lychee or something and
Yeah. No, not even Lachi.
not even Lychee. Okay.
You're done with them. Okay, so you open up the software you intend to combine it with. Can you do these kind of hacky conversions inside your slicer? Yes. Should you? No. Because
No.
those are designed for slicing and printing things. They have basic support for this, but they don't have like actual support for this.
I can verify. Can
Yeah.
verify.
So don't do it in your slicer. Get Blender, get Mesh Mixer, get 3D Builder, whatever one you're comfortable with, and that's where you do your combining. Like here's some elves that some high elves that I have done recently. My Sea Guard that I've shown off a few times on the show are heavily kit bashed. Like I chopped the tops of their spears off because they were tridents, and then I put normal spear tips on them instead. They're all pre-combined into poses that I wanted. I put the backpack with the bow exactly on their backs and put it there exactly how I wanted it. The heads are from a completely different high elf kit that because I didn't want fins on their heads, so I just got normal looking high elf hats. These are all
Sounds like
from
you kind of
Lost Sword miniatures.
seed your seed guard. Got rid of their
I
head fins and their tridents.
Yeah, they were overly CE, and I DC'd them a little bit to look more like the Total War Sea Guard. Now, on the flip side, they still have, they still have scale boots. They still have the overcoat armor instead of
They
the
look
traditional armor.
really cool, but they do look like Dragon Guard to me when I look at them.
Yeah, this is from Lost Sword, and this is part of their Dragon Kindred versions of the High Elves. So they all have a
See,
dragon
this is
theme to
why I'm
them.
like this
Yeah,
vibes Dragon to me.
yeah.
Very
And
scaly, very cool.
I've swapped out parts and combined them together, and then after I got that done in Blender, I would take the finished model into Lachi to support it, and then I would export the supported file and print it in Chi2 box. If you print from Lachi, you can just print it straight from Lachi. I know it's dumb that I don't need to do this step. I should be able to just slice in Lachi, but it's just part of my habit that I will export the supported STL from Lachi to print in Chi2 box.
Once you get your rhythm down, disrupting it, I don't know.
And
Sometimes
once they're all printed out, I painted them up and they look glorious.
They do. And like honestly, I would not necessarily have thought that wasn't how they always were meant to be. Just looking at that, I wouldn't.
And that's one of the advantages of having a 3D printer, because digitally kit bashing and then printing, it looks like it was a produced product that you bought from a blister pack in the store.
Right. Absolutely.
Right.
I mean, if you're just listening to this, I recommend going to the website and checking out some of his Sea Guard that are this kit bash, because they just look like straight out of a blister pack is the right way to say it.
Now, when you're combining things from kits or you're doing custom combining, it's important you do have that overlap so that the parts connect. You want to watch out for voids or pockets. You don't want to make air pockets inside the model or where resin will get trapped when printing.
Uh-huh.
And you want to make sure you have a nice solid connection. Sometimes that's hard to do because some artists, when they make these models, they intentionally oversize the connection so that there's some give. Because if the socket was actually 100% accurate, you would almost never be able to successfully put them together. So the hole is usually a little bit bigger than the socket that goes into it.
I will attest that this model I'm trying to glue together right now is a victim of this, because these are definitely bigger than their divots.
Right. So what I often do there is what I call digital super glue.
Yeah.
Where I will create a simple sphere and then place it between the joints so that the sphere is making the connection that the joint never did. Like, this is real common for like head joints, where I'll just throw a simple sphere into the neck hole before I put the head down, because the heads were meant to like sort of free float into a socket there.
Yeah.
And sometimes when you get when you get them close enough to where it actually will get a solid intersection, their chin is like way too into their chest at that point.
Yeah,
So I'll
I
just
could totally
raise it
see
on
that.
up and
Yep.
throw it's like just think of it like a digital version of a little ball of green stuff that you're shoving in there to make the joint solid.
And
That's what you're doing.
You're going with just the sphere because it's kind of less obtrusive than like a cylinder would be, or
Also, a sphere, because of its shape, it has very little chance that any part of it won't be printable even without supports.
okay.
Yeah, so it's like nice gradual curves. It's an organic shape too, so even if parts of it's visible after the print's done, it will just look natural when you print it and paint it yourself. It's and also it's real easy to size and because you can like squish it in different directions, make it flatter, make it longer, make it oblong, egg shaped, whatever. It's real easy to like manipulate a sphere to be exactly the joint you need it to be.
Cool. That is a good tip.
So that's a tip for that. The other tip is that to make sure that you do rescale your parts to match each other. Nothing looks a little more weird than the left hand twice as big as the right hand.
I mean, unless you're going for that, like a mongrel man or something. Like,
oh, sure. If it's intentional, then absolutely go for it.
but yeah, most of the time you probably want to be the same.
And that's for the basic part. So that's how you can just pre-assemble in 3D and then get it printed. And like if you're using modular kits, that's great. So what happens if you want to go a little bit further? You're not just swapping parts from modular kits that are meant to be parts. Like these spearheads were not modular.
Okay.
I used because they were like the model in question wasn't a wrist joint. It was like the full arm is the modular part holding the spear in that position.
Yeah, you couldn't just
I didn't want to try to just swap in another spear. So what I did in that case is actually just sliced off the top. And how do you do a slice? The easiest way to do a slice is using booleans in whatever program you can. Now Mesh Mixer has a cool feature where you can actually just do a planar slice where you just line up the sphere vertically and then you can bring down a plane and say cut along this vertical line and it'll split it into two pieces. That's useful. But what if in Blender and for more complicated cuts, I use what's called a Boolean. So what I do is I'll take the model that I want to chop a piece off of, and then I will take a shape, usually a square or a sphere, depending on what kind of shape it is, or just a rectangle, and I'll completely surround the part that I either want to cut off or I want to keep, depending on what's going to be easier for the operation. And then you run a Boolean operation where you tell the 3D problem, I either want to keep everywhere this shape intersects with this object, I want to keep that, or you tell it everything but where this shape intersects this object, I want to keep that. So you're either, keeping the part you surrounded, or you are cutting away the part that's outside this shape, depending on what's more convenient.
You said you would use a circle sometimes and a square sometimes, like
like if I'm cutting off a whole arm or something like that, I'll take a circle and surround the arm instead of the opposite, so that the rounded edge is sticking out from the piece I want to keep.
Okay.
So that it's easier to join that up later
to another thing. Okay. So that's why you use a circle.
And if I wanted that to be reversed, like it's a glove and I wanted to be convex, I would do the opposite of that.
Right. Cut in with a circle. So why would you use a square then?
A square is if I want to slap just a straight line. With
Okay.
these spears, I was able to like line it up perfect for that spear tip I wanted, right at the part where the decorative connection hits the
Mhm.
shaft, so that I was able to just do a smooth, perfect cut right along that line.
Nice. Cool.
And so that's how you can do, cut off pieces of one model and add them to the other. It's super easy. Once you do that, it's just like it's a modular piece. And in fact, one of the things I've done is, but you can go further than this.
You can go further.
You can
Okay.
go further than this. And one of my
Tell me
magnum
your
opuses
mysterious
for
ways.
this. Okay, so learn a little bit of 3D sculpting. Um, opening up the sculpting tab, you can squish, distort, smooth out, carve shapes. Like you can create things from scratch. That's how these models are created. If you just learn a little bit to be dangerous, you can do a whole lot of customization. So this is Yoshinoko's um, Lancers that
Mhm.
I have here. A favorite set of one of my first 3D printed models. I printed off a whole bunch of these to be my spearmen for my Human Kingdom of Rordia army when I was first getting into Kings of War. But Rordia is an alliance of men and halflings working together to defend the
You
realm
love
from.
your halflings.
I do love me my halflings. So I wanted some matching halflings to go with these spearmen here.
I think
And
I see
so
where
I
this is
did.
going. You
I
did.
took the
Holy
bodies and I
cow.
plumped them out and shrunk them. I took some halfling heads from Monsters Encounters halfling kits. I took their furry feet from that kit too. I had to resculpt the feet a bunch to get it to fit. Um, and I cut their boots off. I made some little uh,
So these guys,
sabots.
is that the trunk though of like one of the normal suit soldiers like distorted
Yeah, that's
down
their
to be
body. Yeah, that I shrunk and flattened and plumped out by pulling on it, and you just
and
like
plumped
it's a
out? I
piece of
love it.
toffee that I hobbited it up. I took the helmet, I sliced the helmet off the top of one of their heads. I took a halfling head and shoved inside the helmet so that it's a halfling head inside the helmet instead of just one of the human heads.
I mean, they definitely look
Um,
like a halfling unit. That is really cool.
and then I took this model, and because I wanted to be able to have several different poses of these halflings,
Hmm.
I then put a skeleton rig inside of it in Blender.
Oh wow,
Now, when you start putting skeletons inside of things, then you can completely repose them. So it doesn't even matter what they're posed like. You can move the arms, the legs, and weapons, and arms, and heads, and everything. And just, heck, if you rig it out enough, you can even change the expression on their faces. I haven't gone that far yet. I usually
yeah.
just
Didn't
manually
Adam
do
from
that.
Twin Goddess say he does that? He can actually do their
Yes, he
facial
does.
expressions.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and it's very obvious that Comet Lord does it too.
Yeah.
A lot of the artists will do that, and it makes sense. Like make things in an A pose and repose them in the different poses you want.
Yeah, Scott from
And
Comet
then,
Lord streams his sculpting process, and it's just hypnotic. Sometimes I just watch like him smoothing out textures or making chainmail, and I'm like, it's so calming. Anyway,
and then I was like, I want to take this a little bit further. They don't need to just be spearmen. I have a whole bunch of foot guard that needs some halflings in it. So I took
hmm
those same halflings, changed up the armor a little bit, gave them a sword and a rapier from a different kit entirely, reposed. This is the A pose version. I ended up making like 6 different poses of fighting stances for this halfling and printing them out.
that's really
And
cool.
then I mixed them. I mixed them in. You're seeing a whole bunch of them. Here's a bunch of the halflings after I painted them, and I've lost I've lost the link, but I mixed them in with the normal spear line for the unit, and it just looks perfect. It looks like they were always meant to be that way. Some more things is like I took a different halfling hero and put it on one of the chocobos from Line Tower, and then like customed up some. Grabbed a phoenix model, no, a griffin model, and pulled its wings off, and then slapped it on the chocobo
I
and
was going to say
resculpted the chocobo
because
wings to
black
spread them
chocobos
out
can
wide.
fly. We know
Painted it
this.
black so it could fly because this
Yeah,
model is meant to be a flying version of the honor guard, which are giant flying dogs, but I figured chocobos were better for halflings.
cool. I like it.
Yeah. So you can just go nuts once you have embraced the fact that you can just slice things their models and
Now
slap it together.
makes my jaw drop. This thing. It's
So
very cool.
I grabbed a small airship and made it chibi, and then I took some of the shields from a Reinhardt scan from Overwatch and slapped it on the side, and this really cool sphere magic thingy from some magic staff I don't remember. Put it in the back. Got some of Dan Kelly's halfling mages and put them together, floating off of it. Their capes are actually intersected into the side of the airship, so that they appear to be flying above it. And this is my Shrine of Sigmar being pulled by a chocobo instead of like boring old horses.
Vast improvement. Super
Yeah,
cool.
there was like
So
some like there's floating on a cloud that was meant to be a flight base for a repulsor for
nice.
Space Marines. So
So
like,
this
yeah,
is like this is from like 4 or 5 different fandoms here turning into your one thing.
right. And I forget where I got the other the round lion shields. Those got slapped on. And Cast and Play is where I got the magic book on the pedestal.
Yeah, so it's even more. So many
Yeah.
things combined into one really cool mini.
Yeah. It's just like actual kitbashing. It's just do it before it prints, and then it prints in one solid piece, and it all looks perfect because you've done it that way.
So we're at what 52 minutes.
Oh, and you finally got it glued together.
Yes, where I could
I
have
mean,
just
or you
posed
can
in.
print the parts out manually and glue them together. That's the other way you can do it.
Yeah.
I prefer my method, but you
I think I
do
like your
you.
method too. Here's another thing that also doesn't happen. You don't
Mm-hmm.
grab the wrong body piece that has broken parts on it
Oh
and then
no.
glue it. So yes, I've been gluing my 52-minute glue job to realize it is in fact the broken print. So
I'm sorry.
it's all right. It's all right. This is the cautionary tale. You should learn to do the sculpting and not sculpting, joining and posing and modularity in the program first, because that would be just, oh crap, I'll just reprint this, as opposed to I just spent 50 minutes gluing together something that's pretty much broken.
Yeah. Now, the disadvantage of my method is you do end up with a lot of repeats of the same poses because eventually I get lazy of how many different poses I'm going to do. If I have 24 models that I need in a unit and I printed them all out in pieces, it's fairly easy to make sure each of them are slightly variants of each other. I usually don't make 24 unique poses
Oh,
if
come
I'm
on.
doing them in
Quitter.
advance. I've done
Quitter.
11 before, but never quite 24. Usually I just sort of like 4 or 5 and then I'm done. And I've said before, 3 unique poses is all you need for the illusion that it's
But if
a
you did
crowd.
11 and then axis flipped them, you'd have a lot.
Yeah, you would have
So
a ton.
you'd have a ton. That's a lot.
But you can do it as if you want 24 poses. It's nothing. It's just, make another copy of the body, move the legs and arms around, slap on a couple of different, like grab a different sword. It's super easy. It's really just, what do you have time for?
I just worry sometimes because, like, I'm the sort of person, I downloaded the Black Desert character creator just to make, different combinations of people. I don't think I ever actually played the game, but like you can spend hours on that character creator, and I just worry that if I get the ability to pose on my minis, it's all over. You'll never see me again.
Right. Well, you have that ability, and it's
know.
super easy to learn now.
Yes, I will do it. I will do it soon.
Yeah. And so, and all of your kits that you get from any mini creator is just spare parts.
Well, it'll definitely help me. Like, I think the tribe is called Fleshcraft Studios.
Oh, those are super creepy.
They're super creepy, and I love them.
Of course,
but
you
they're
like them. You love super creepy.
But they're all modular, and even Bastarium started doing more modular stuff, and so it's like the idea when I print it, I'm like, this is cool, horrible monster thing slurping across about. Oh, it's in 17 pieces. Yeah. And there's my effort to print it usually.
And we should shout out to our favorite modular creators right now, actually.
Sure.
So Titan Forge does modular kit every time. Artisan Guild has been doing a modular since the beginning. They do solid bodies with heads and just modular wrists, whereas Titan Forge does full on bodies and legs are together. The arms are at the elbows, and that's an interesting choice for them, but that's how they like to do it. I don't like arms at the elbows. I like either shoulders or wrists, one or the
Shoulders or
other.
wrists, yeah. I agree with
Yeah.
that. I'll throw out, of course, Puppets War has some
Mm-hmm.
good modular stuff. There's another one I was gonna. Oh, Battle Yak.
Battle
I
Yak is good.
love Battle Yak's modular kits,
Mm-hmm.
and they're actually, if you're doing it this old, crappy way, they're still pretty good to glue. The Battle Yak ones are pretty nice.
Yeah. For sci-fi reptilian overlords,
Mm-hmm.
is like they all they do is different modular kits, and they expect you to cross combine them with their other kits. Puppets War is the same way. All their kits are modular, and they expect you to. Obviously, since we said Titan Forge, Cyber Forge is the same way.
Sure. I mean, they usually have at least one
Cyber Forge
mini.
is more modular. They
Really?
the torso is flat at where the arm joins on most of their modular kits, which is a lot better than elbow.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm trying to think of anything else to jump out at me. I know there's going to be something. I'm just going to kick myself here in a second.
Vivictus, they recently did the big switch over to modular minis, and I know that they've said that that's been a lot of extra work on them, so I want to congratulate them. It makes their kits so much more appealing to me, especially since they're cross-compatible with all their other kits. In fact, their kits are cross-compatible with North Star Miniatures plastic kits.
Oh, that's cool.
Which is super awesome because I have so many bits from Oathmark and Frostgrave plastic kits that I've bought over the years. And War Games Atlantic is also the same cross compatibility there. So if you've got War Games Atlantic or Frostgrave, and you just need some more bodies to put all those 1,000 extra arms and heads they have, look at Vivictus. They've got the answer for you right there.
If you're looking for like mechs or dark Eldar, what they're called something else now, Drukari, or I don't know how to say it. Yeah, I would say Edge Miniatures does some good modular kits, and so does Dork Factory for the big mechs. And they actually started doing some very unique bug aliens recently. I'm kind of bummed out because I had unsubbed for them for a month when they dropped their like base warrior pack, and I'm like, they're just very unusual, very different looking. If you want like Tyranids but not Tyranids, or Alien Hive for OPR or whatever, very very fun, different looking bugs. Mm-hmm. I like me bugs. Everybody knows that. Speaking of which, I think Wild Mesh, some of their stuff's modular as well.
Mm-hmm. Wild Mesh, Duncan Shadows, who we shouted out to last episode, they do a lot of modular kits for their soldiers, and they just released Undead Frog people.
Undead Frogs, something I asked for. I don't know that it might just be a coincidence, but it made me very happy anyway.
Duncan, if you're listening to the episode, we appreciate the zombie frogs.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Also, they're one of the creators that switched to the $5 model too. So Red Pilgrim and Duncan Shadow are $5 patrons.
Gosh, I might have to pick that back up.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, it's like I love the $5 model for like small select group of stuff for $5 is great. For a great way to support unique artists that it's really hard to compete with the Titan Forge, the Artisan Guild, the Epic Miniatures, One Page Rules. One Page Rules does modular too. One Page Rules and Vivictus and a few others, they do both. You get the modular versions in the folder, and then they pre-assemble default poses that you can also just print if you're not a modular fan.
Right, which I really appreciate, because there are days when like I really need, hey, Games Monday, it's Saturday, I need to print and paint that. And like the idea of going in and adding another step to like build it out is just like, ugh,
right.
Can't do it.
I just started my Saurian Warriors, and instead of doing like custom poses, I just printed the default poses for those. It was so much easier than like I love that I have the freedom to customize, but sometimes I just want a lizard man holding a club.
Right, absolutely. Especially if you need a bunch of lizard men holding clubs.
But you can bet when it's time to print my general, I'm going to customize the crap out of that lizard.
Of course, yeah.
He's going to be riding a T-Rex. He's going to look so awesome.
Very cool. I'm trying to think. I'm trying to think of things like that have modularity, but don't like. Lord of the Print has like a builder, right? So you don't have to do that yourself.
Printing goes ever onwards.
Printing goes ever on. Sorry, I said Lord of the Print, which is big monsters.
I meant their own builder.
Thank you for knowing what I was thinking, not what I said.
But
the
builder just exports a custom zip file of parts.
Oh, so you still have to.
You have to glue
Fascinating.
them.
You still need to do that step. Well, that's okay. Then it's still, I would still put it on our list because they do very impressive modular
Yeah.
kits.
Yeah. I have used their stuff to customize a bunch of wood elves and orcs. It's good stuff. All right. In the news, moving on from this topic, we've got the fact that the Saturn 2s and Neptune 3s are starting to hit actual customer hands. We're seeing
Yes.
lots of people saying, "Yay, I just got it." So if you pre-ordered those models during the big rush there, expect those soon. I got my shipping notification. I should have my Neptune 3 tomorrow, that FedEx says. So I'm hoping to get that set up.
I
And
bet you
hopefully
that's what I
printing
just
some
got a
cool stuff.
random FedEx like you're getting a package tomorrow, and
It's probably your Neptune.
I haven't compared tracking numbers, but I bet you it is since I got that shipping notification. So
yeah,
very cool.
And we were talking a little bit about before the show started with Cast and Play, their interiors, that it does look like that's a resin focused terrain set. Even the walls are meant to be printed in resin. And they did a whole city where they made resin printable versions of the entire city tiles. Now that had a little bit of problem where when you try to print big resin chunks like that, like of their ship or of the buildings, because resin warps, you kind of have to do a little bit more work with green stuff to get it all pieced together. But for the wall chunks, that shouldn't be a problem.
It shouldn't be an issue at all.
They showed this really cool video of printing their door, which is a print in place resin model. The door prints closed in place, and then you push on it, the support breaks that is holding the door there, and it swings open on a hinge.
That's very cool. I saw some chains like that actually worked really well when I broke them apart.
I really want to print one of those wiggle dragons, if you know what I'm talking about. At
the Minicon I was at, there was tons of those wiggle dragons that are really
I want wiggle dragons.
Speaking of that terrain interior,
I have the Neptune 3 coming. I should just order some really cool filament.
Yeah, there you go. And that Patreon that she does those models is really, really affordable, by the way. But I was going to say, before we stop talking about the terrain thing, since we talked about pirates a couple weeks ago, there is a pirate ship wall. So it does interiors of ships. And I thought, like, what a cool way to do that. Because when you're doing a map, it's already just the outline of a pirate ship. It's not and then I was like, well, that's a really neat interior build out for your pirate ship. Very, very cool. So
I'm strongly, especially where I'm getting Strahd running soon, I'm strongly thinking about just doing the ultimate dungeon terrain model where it's just a big circular ground texture, and then using these walls to instead of like trying to build the whole dungeon on my table all at once, I could just
the big lazy
focus
Susan
on the encounters and stuff.
Like Black Magic Craft just did one, and a couple other people have done it. Yeah,
Professor Dungeon Master is the one that came up with the idea, but like lots of people have kind of riffed on it and perfected it. And there was even a couple of like 3D printable versions that hit Kickstarter recently. My plan is maybe either doing it either as a circle, or I was just thinking about just like printing off 2 square feet worth of terrain tiles and permanently gluing them together.
Sure.
And putting that on the Lazy Susan. Yeah, it's got sharp edges, but it doesn't matter if it's round or not.
I did also see a new Patreon that had printable stamps and rollers for doing a clay surface for that. See, yeah. So you print those out, and then you just roll your really cheap clay across that big round surface, trim that off, and let it cure. Yeah. And the guy I saw even had a grid stamp, so you can just go. Then when you're done, much everything, you just did your grid stamp, and you got your inch grid if you use that in your game. And I was like, wow, that is really neat.
I got these from a set off of Thingiverse for free, and the grid stamp is available there too for the same purpose. I used this on Dollar Store Foam Core. I glue that to chipboard and then run this across it, and that's how I do my tiles.
And I think that would be a perfect base for using those terrain ones. Yeah.
But I could 3D print them from new printable scenery. Heck, the Kraken exteriors, I totally could. Like, I am kind of looking at like printing the wilderness version of that out as an option for this.
Like the ones that go on the corners of the tiles, you mean?
No, it's like they've got a grass texture, just open lock tiles, like wilderness textures as part of that whole Kickstarter they did a little while ago that I pledged in on.
Maybe I missed that one.
I mostly did it just so I could get like the freestanding versions of the buildings and trees and rocks and stuff like that. But they also
Gotcha.
had like an entire ship's interior as part of that. So sure, I can do that if I needed to. But I don't think that Curse of Strahd goes into outer space.
I don't
don't
think
know
so,
yet.
unless you're really gonna like do like a big spelljammer finish for it, maybe.
Yeah. I could remap it as Vampire Hunter D's Curse of Strahd, and then you're all on Mars with
That would be
cyborg
cool.
ponies.
Though I think we only have Pathfinder rules for that. Although you could probably kitbash
Do you
something.
know how hard it was to track that down for my
Yeah,
collection?
I don't have the physical one still. I lament that. I have the PDF, but I do not have the physical print of that book.
Yeah, I had to track that down. I ended up getting it on an eBay lot where somebody had like bunched it in with a bunch of other stuff. I don't think they knew what they had.
Huh. Yeah. But I'm surprised you didn't back it physical back in the day. Maybe I don't know. You probably were in a similar position I was.
Yeah, I mean, like I love podcasting. Don't make me rich, people. So some months are leaner than others, and that had a real expensive buy-in.
It did for the physical.
Also,
for sure.
It wasn't announced as an official Pathfinder project until after the campaign ended.
Yeah, which I thought was really weird. Like they had like a playable class in it or two, and like a whole bunch of stuff.
Yeah, it was cool. And Wes Snyder wrote it, and I just like, I can't imagine a better person to write that source book than Wes.
Absolutely, and it's got such little weird, creepy magic items in it that I still like rip off for things to this day.
All right, everyone, we are running out of time and steam on this episode. Anything more you want to shout out to, Kristen?
No, I think we got to the Red Pilgrim, so that was the one I was thinking of.
If you want to support the show, you could do so by giving us a 5-star review or, any review. But we think we're a 5-star podcast on iTunes or Spotify, or by giving us a comment. If you're watching this on YouTube, it super helps the algorithm. Like, subscribe, ring the bell, all that jazz. It really does help to get our word out, and we would appreciate it if you enjoyed the show to just take a few minutes to go do that. And if you want to find more of the show, you can subscribe to us on all the platforms over at printyourgames.com. We're available on Google, Spotify, iTunes, wherever. And if you are having fun, we just appreciate it. If you want to get in touch with us, you can email us at podcast@printyourgames.com or reach us at facebook.com/printyourgames or twitter.com/printyourgames. Until next time, I'm Jefferson J. Thacker, also known as Perram.
I'm Kristen Sowards, also known as Lost Spheres. Don't forget to use your screen protector.
And we will see you all next time.